All right, here is my thought spoiler review of Godzilla Minus One. And now, I have grown up loving Big G for a long time. I can remember that we had the Showa and Heisei eras, and then I don't know what this new era that began with Shin Godzilla is, but it's really been something that's been interesting because with legendary stories, you've kind of wondered how Toho was going to carry on with that. And while Shin is good and stuff, it's still not quite my cup of tea. But they, all I can say is they really did it with this one. They really pumped this thing full. It's going to be hard to top this one. Now, I don't remember 2016. I can't remember when Shin came out if there was a limited release here in the U.S., but we got a limited release of Godzilla Minus One, and it has been such a huge hit. It's been extended. Now, it's supposed to be out of theaters tomorrow, as of this recording, which is Thursday, but it has been extended to the 14th of December. So we'll see how that goes. But that said, let me get right into the review. So this film, I will say, I feel like it brought some elements from some of the other eras in. And that happens with the beginning of this film. It begins with a plane landing on a beat-up airstrip. It turns out that we meet Kochi, I think is his name. He is a pilot, a kamikaze pilot. And he basically, for lack of a better term, he chickens out, of doing what he should have done. But he meets with a sympathetic mechanic. Anyway, he tells him that, hey, my plane isn't working properly, and they go through the plane to figure it out, and he gets upset when the head mechanic questions him, but the head mechanic basically says to him, we need more guys like you. I understand. The day is the last day of World War II. So that's the way it begins, and then nighttime comes. They hear a noise. Turns out it's Godzilla. Now this is where we see a link back to the original. Well, not the original, but the Heisei, or I don't know if I'm saying that properly. But that era where I think it was Godzilla versus Destroyer, or it was one of the ones, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, maybe. It was around the 1991 release, and they showed a story with a quote-unquote Godzillasaurus. And that's basically what we get at this point, is Godzilla jumps on the island. They know it's Godzilla. They give the name Godzilla. But he's about that big. He's about the size of a T-Rex, if you will. Definitely that dinosaur style. And he's laying waste to the area. They try to get Kochi to get into the plane and shoot the thing. And he gets there to the plane, but again, he chickens out. This poor guy's got a lot of PTSD. And basically what ends up happening with him at this point in time with the story is he basically watches everybody die except for the head mechanic. Head mechanic gives him blame. There's just a lot of stuff there. The next time they show, they're on a boat. He hands him a packet with the pictures from the guys showing, basically these guys that he let die were family men. He gets home, finds that his house has been decimated by the bombings. His parents are dead. His family is dead. His neighbor comes to realize, hey, you were supposed to be a kamikaze pilot. She berates him. It's really not a good start for this poor guy. And as he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life, he is on the streets trying to figure out his next move. Woman comes running by, hands him a bundle of clothes, which turns out to be a baby. She's being chased by the police. After some time, he tries to put the baby down, tries to walk away, but he can't. I mean, that's the one thing about Kochi. He might have survivor's guilt, he might have PTSD, but he's really a good man. And he picks up the baby and starts heading back to his place, trying to figure out what he's going to do. He runs into the woman whose name is Noriko. And basically, long story short, she ends up working her way into sharing the place with him. He's built this makeshift shack in which to live in. And they're trying to take care of the baby. The neighbor next door who was berating him, they use her to help figure out how to nurse the baby. And you see kind of this family dynamic start building. Some time goes by. We see dates that flash up on the screen, 1945, 1946, 1947, so on. And this is to give you the sense that time is passing on. We know that Godzilla attacked Tokyo in 1954, according to the original. I think it was 54 was the original, but they are trying to keep that timeline set. And how this event happens, I'll explain. Anyway, Kochi finds a job with a group of guys that are going out, and they're basically in a wooden boat, and they're working as a minesweeper, picking up the mines that were left in the harbor after the defeat. And what we end up seeing is through all those things, a family dynamic grows between Kochi and the captain, Doc, and this young man who's on the ship. There's other stuff that goes on. We see the nuclear tests at Bikini Atoll, which, as we know in the original Godzilla film and throughout, that is the bombing that mutates Godzilla. And we see that. We see a picture of Godzilla underwater. The radiation hits his face, starts to do something. You know something's going on there. So it's kind of an interesting situation. But at the same time, while that goes on, they know that Godzilla has been mutated and enlarged, and there's supposed U.S. tensions with Russia or the Soviet Union because of the nuclear tests. And so, there's just some stuff that goes on there that they basically say that they can't share this out in the public. So it's kind of, that's where they're skirting the issue that this incident happened before the main Godzilla film, and how we're only finding out about this stuff now is there's this whole thing where Japan's trying to figure out how are they going to protect themselves from Godzilla. They know things are going to happen. Godzilla eventually attacks. Noriko ends up getting a job in the Gina district. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. Ginza, I think is what it was. Ginza. And so what ends up happening is all this stuff, there's kind of like a big ball of wibbly wobbly. No, there's a lot that happens in this whole thing. First off, the little crew in the wooden minesweeper, they're sent out there as decoys. They're waiting for a heavy cruiser to get out there. General MacArthur has allowed them to confiscate a Japanese cruiser to get out there to get rid of this thing. They don't know what it is. And we get to see the big guy for the first time. They're able to blow up a landmine on him. Not a landmine, but one of the underwater mines on him. And little to nothing happens. The second one ends up in his mouth. Kochi's able to shoot that, and it blows a gaping hole in his mouth. But then we see Godzilla's mutated healing factor. And that really lets us know that we're in trouble. And so Godzilla starts to go to Tokyo. That's where Noriko is. She barely gets out of there with her life. Of course, Kochi is taken to the hospital because of stuff that happened on the ship. He wakes up. He's trying to find her. They get out there. They run into each other. You can start seeing that he's really starting to have feelings for her. She has feelings for him. There is this prior incident where he's already built the house and or built a new home, and they think his crewmates think that they're married, and when they find out that they're not married and that they're raising this girl who's not even either one of theirs as their own, they realize that there's a beautiful thing going on here in the rebuilding of Japan, but at the same time, they're wondering why he hasn't proposed to her, or if he's really got these feelings. They can tell that Noriko loves Kochi, and the little girl is calling him daddy, and he refuses to let her call her that. And I love the scene with the captain where he berates him that he would not allow the girl who he's raising to call him daddy. And so there's just some really good stuff going on. But anyway, Ginza is attacked. Noriko is on a train. She just escapes. The Godzilla gets the train in his mouth. She's able to escape by diving into the water when the car is split in half and the part that she's holding on is over water. She makes it out. She's kind of in shock. Kochi finds her, and Godzilla comes in. He's attacking. They're running for their lives. We see the first use of Godzilla's atomic ray. I know a lot of people call it heat ray, but it's his atomic ray or atomic heat ray, whatever we want to call it. And there is a blowback from this, and she pushes him into an alley, and she gets blown away. When he comes to, he cannot find her. He thinks she's dead. He goes back. He has to tell the little girl. There's just a touching scene. The group of people, because America does not want this thing out there, they're basically giving the Japanese permission to deal with it as they will. So they come up with a plan to sink him using Freon into a deep water gulch and then automatically raising him up fast, which would give him the bends, and then using that as a chance to kill him. That said, what ends up happening does not work totally that way. The work that they do is to use this by getting a couple of ships that will circle him with the Freon tanks and sink him down. Kochi comes up with another plan on this, which is to get a fighter, and it's an interesting looking fighter. I had to look this up. It's a real fighter that was used. Only 2 were ever built, so it's kind of interesting that they were able to use it in this film. It looks like they used the real thing. But that said, Kochi uses this time to find the mechanic to help him repair it. And basically, he tricks the mechanic into coming out So there's like some fighting there, but he kind of like lets him know what happened and that he's ready to give up his life if need be in order to save the people of Japan. That said, he begins working on the plane to get it working. Doc is revealed to be have been a high level Imperial Japanese person, and so he has the whole plan to use the Freon tanks to sink him down. I think it was 1,500 meters. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's what they were going to do, is sink him 1,500 meters. I really don't know how deep that is. It's anyway. The big thing is that that ends up happening, and what ends up happening with this whole thing. The plan starts to go into effect. It doesn't work well right away. They end up using 3 ships, 2 of the ships to circle around. One ship is a decoy with no one on board. It's used so that the big guy can use his atomic blast to blast that ship, and then they know that they have a certain amount of time to do all this before he can get back the second blast. What ultimately ends up happening in the storyline is, prior to that, Kochi uses the jet plane, whatever it was, to get him out into the water. They're able to sink him. He sinks quick. They raise him, but apparently the raising, something goes wrong at about 800 meters, 700 meters, and I think, in all honesty, I think that kind of gives him a chance to not have the bend so much, but there is some stuff going on when he finally does come back after the young guy brings in like all these tugboats to help, because the 2 ships, the 2 cruisers cannot do what they need to bring Godzilla back up to the top. And so with that, the way that they're doing things is they are trying to see what they can do in order to get him out of the area, get him up out of the water. That doesn't work properly, and what ends up happening is they get the boats come in, they have enough power now, they bring him up, we see him the way he is, but now he's also had the time to recharge the atomic weapon. Recharges the atomic weapon, and yes, Kochi comes out of nowhere and is ready to kamikaze the jet. Now, prior to that, when he went back to the mechanic and got the plane, we noticed that as the mechanic was working on the plane, he had noticed something inside the cockpit. What ends up happening is he finds out that this plane had been set with an eject button. And so he pointed this out, when he's getting in the plane and going through everything. They kind of cut back and showing him some stuff, but you didn't know what it was. You find out he basically tells him, you don't have to die. Here's the eject button. Live. Do a favor and live for your daughter. And that's what ends up happening is he crashes the plane in. The bomb that he had put in the plane explodes, like literally takes off Godzilla's head. And then we see Godzilla kind of just falling all into the water. While this is going on, I gotta bring up that he's figuring that before he even found that out, he figures that he's going to be committing, suicide. He's going to be a kamikaze pilot. He leaves his daughter, his adopted daughter, in the hands of his neighbor with money and says, please raise her. And then she gets a letter we don't find out what this letter is. As they have picked him up and they're bringing him, the boat's coming back, they're all celebrating that Godzilla's passed. There is this thing that's going on where she comes up, she hands him the letter, he realizes it, he takes the girl. We see him running into a hospital, getting up to the top floor. We find out that Noriko has lived. She asks him, "Is your war over?" He says yes, and they embrace. And what we notice is on her neck there is a black swirly kind of thing. Now, some people have said that this is radiation sickness. Other people, including myself, noticed that it appeared to be moving, so there's something going on there. So I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see this come in to another movie at some time. But it just seems like they left it open, especially since you think that's it. And we go through everything, but we notice that now, as the chunks of flesh of Godzilla are sinking to the bottom, one appears to be mutating back into a smaller Godzilla or a larger Godzilla. So we can see where Godzilla 1954 would not have all the interesting intricacies of this, but how this can fit in as a prequel and be its own thing. So my thoughts were, it's a 10 out of 10, and it's a great movie. You gotta see it. My review doesn't do it justice, believe me. I'm giving you this a couple of days after the fact, but go see it. It was really, really good.